Anatomical planes can be tricky in figuring out which one is which, so in this video we're going to talk about major ways to separate them and easy ways to pick them up. I'm Rory Mead, and this is MA Made Easy. Anatomical planes are useful because they help us identify body movements and pick out structures, in the case of imaging like MRI and CT scans. The three major ones you're going to need to know: coronal, sagittal plane, and the transverse plane. Let's start off with the coronal plane. The coronal plane is also known as the frontal plane because it's typically seen from the front. It separates the body into front and back, or anterior and posterior. The coronal plane gets its name from a suture that runs across the top of the head here, called the coronal suture. Easy enough. An easy way to remember this one is picture yourself putting a crown on top of your head. Any movement in this direction is going to be in that coronal plane. The second plane you're going to need to know is the sagittal plane. And just like the coronal plane, it gets its name from a suture on the top of the cranium. It actually runs front to back and separates the two parietal bones from right and left. So the sagittal plane is going to separate right and left. It's best seen from a side view, so any type of movement that you see from the side, that's going to be a sagittal view. Two types of sagittal planes that you're going to need to know: there's mid-sagittal and parasagittal. Mid-sagittal is pretty straightforward. It's perfect cut right down the middle, mirror image, you can fold it on top of itself. A parasagittal is going to be any cut that's off to the side, so that if you were to fold the image in half, it wouldn't be equal parts. Memory trick for the sagittal plane: sagittal actually means arrow in Latin. So picture yourself shooting an arrow. This posture here is best seen from the sagittal view, therefore you have sagittal. Or you can picture an arrow coming at you, splitting you into two sides, right and left. So we've talked about coronal plane, we've talked about sagittal plane. Now let's get into the last one, transverse plane. This one's a little bit trickier. It's hard for people to recognize it, but an easy way to think about it would be it separates the body into top and bottom, or superior and inferior portions. So any cut that goes through the middle and separates top and bottom, that's going to be transverse plane. Memory trick for transverse plane: take the T from transverse and think of a tie around the neck separating the top and bottom, or a tutu around the waist that separates top and bottom. Alright, that one's not great, but remember the first two and you'll be okay. A fourth bonus plane that you probably don't need to know, but we'll just cover it just in case. It's called the oblique plane, and it's anything that runs on a diagonal. So think of yourself making an X across, right to left, X across. That's going to be your oblique. It actually gets its name from this diagonal nature. You actually have muscles in your lower abdomen that run towards the groin. Those are called your oblique abdominal muscles. So body planes are good to know in terms of movement, so you know which plane you're moving in. If you're abducting or adducting your arms, you're moving them in the frontal plane because you can see them best from the front view. If you're flexing your shoulder and moving it up this way, you're moving it in the sagittal plane because it's best seen from the side. And if you had an overhead view and you were moving your arms this way, front to back, that would be a transverse view. But in terms of imaging, such as MRI or CT, like I talked about before, this helps us identify structures. So any CT scan that you see that's looking at the abdomen, usually it's looking from a superior view down, lower into the abdomen, and gives you a look at the organs kind of cut in half, but from the top. It's very useful to understand this because usually at the back is going to be a spinal column, then off to your right is going to be your liver, and then you'll see the kidneys a little bit lower. So understanding where you're looking at in these images really helps you figure out what's going on. It's kind of a good way to assess for kidney stone, masses, gas, could be anything in the system. Alright, that's everything you need to know about anatomical planes. I hope this video was useful to you. Please subscribe or hit the like button if you have time for it, or just shoot me a comment in the bottom of what I should cover next. Until next time, I'm Rory Mead, and thanks for watching MA Made Easy.